Hey, this is Patrick with Recovery Conversations. Thanks for visiting my channel. Today I'm going to share with you the second of three, maybe four clips of a conversation I had with Jeff Munn, author of Staying Sober Without God. You should check out the book if you haven't already. So when I interview people, there's two questions I love to ask them. The first one is, if somebody came to you struggling with addiction, what's your advice? Where do you send them? And the second question is, where do you think the industry is going? You know, when you look at what we've learned over the decades about addiction and support and recovery, where do you think we're going to see success down the line? And I'm going to share with you Jeff's answer to the latter question of where do you think the industry is going. I hope you enjoy it and learn something from it, and I hope it gets you to think a little differently. Mahalo. Which kind of leads into the last question I had for you. We kind of live and work in an industry based on a 12-step platform. That's like the origins of recovery work is largely 12-step based.
Hmm.
And I think that right now it's an exciting time that there's empirical evidence coming and saying there's a lot of other ways we can look at this.
Hmm.
So what, like, if in your crystal ball, where's the industry going with looking at addiction and recovery?
Um, that's a good question. Um, there's sort of the cutting edge of it, as with any industry, there's newer sort of cutting edge type stuff, and I think there's progress being made in the field of sort of basically medication assisted
Mm-hmm.
recovery. So things like the Sinclair method. That was called the Sinclair method. Am I using that
Yes, I
term
tried
correctly? With
that.
naltrexone.
Yeah.
Um, I think um, as we learn more about trauma and psychology and, adverse childhood events that increase odds of addiction, I think psychotherapy around it will get better. You know, but that's, like I said, that's at the cutting edge of it, which a lot of people don't have access to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think what's really going to continue to be the core of recovery for most people, at least in the beginning, is the availability of social support programs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something that's going to be accessible to a lot of people. And I think, oddly enough, I think COVID was actually pretty good for a lot of people because it's much, much easier to get to meetings now than it ever was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are online meetings as effective as in-person meetings? Who knows? That would be an incredibly difficult thing to study. So we can only guess. Probably not exactly the same, but if it's between not going to a meeting and going to an online meeting, I'd always say go to a meeting. So I think there are some changes happening. I think I think it really depends on what means a person has. It's unfortunately there's a big disparity in the quality of treatment that people can get depending on their socioeconomic status. And I'd love to see even the most uh, expensive and effective treatments be available for anyone who needs it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see that because it's not fair that people who are um, you know that are more of the have-nots don't have as much of an ability to get the quality of recovery that they need.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I see recovery as one of the most beautiful things possible. When you hear of what people were like when they're using,
Mm.
what their life was, who they appeared as, and who they are in recovery, it's night and day. And I wish everybody had that opportunity equally.
Yeah.
It does
And
matter.
it'll help everybody. It's not just going to help that person. I think a lot of people, there's huge stigma around addiction, of course, and people see addicts as selfish and, morally bankrupt. And there's still a lot of stigma around that. And, I think that's one of the major sort of stumbling blocks right now is getting getting through that and realizing that this is a condition, whether or not you want to call it a disease. That word is so loaded and people misinterpret what that means, but it's a condition. It's not something anybody has chosen to fall into. It's clear that there's a genetic component, and some people just are much more likely to fall into it than others. And we need to stop casting moral judgment on people with addictions and making help available. And like I said, it's going to help everybody. It doesn't help anybody to judge addicts.
Yeah.
But if they're helped, it helps them, it helps their families, it helps all of society. It's a no-brainer to me. We have to stop moralizing it, and we have to get people help.
Yep.
As is the case for any mental health condition.